Arkham Interlude, a Cthulhu-lit RPG short story, written by Tony Walker and narrated by Tony Walker. Chapter 1. Game Stream. Just call me Jim. It's not my real name, but you don't need to know my real name, and to be honest, I'd prefer it if you didn't. This is about Darkworlds, the virtual reality game. To be honest with you, I didn't even play the game to start off with. Not to start. Some people jump right into things, but not me. I'm cautious. I'm not what they call an early adopter. I like to watch and wait. I'm usually very cautious. I wish I'd been more cautious, to be honest, but now it's too late. Darkworlds had been getting a lot of advertising, a lot of hype, pushing it really hard on all the streams. So I decided to check it out and look up a few feeds on GameStream before deciding whether I wanted to shell out my hard-earned cash and play. There were plenty of live streams, but there were dead ones too. In Darkworlds, you start off by living your life. You create a backstory of where you were born, who your parents were, and your education and stuff. And of course, the game is set in 1927, so you're limited to jobs and lives you could have lived back then. Not now. Now it's 2027. The world is very different. Most of us never go out. We sit in our offices and rooms. I live in Brooklyn, just outside the wall. Inside the wall's very difficult to get to, unless you have mega money, which I don't. So there were thousands of live streams and lots more recorded ones. For some reason, I was attracted to the feed of a guy called Spring-Heeled Jack. And his was a historic feed. Part of the attraction was that he was supposed to have died in the game, gone into the haunted house and never come back. Macabre, maybe. I liked the ghoulish, I liked Lovecraft, and that's why I was thinking of playing Darkworlds and not something like Thunderball or League of Heroes. I had the 3D rig, but Darkworlds came with its own special neural net, just like a hairnet that somehow linked with your mind. And of course, it had its own game enhancer, the famous Dreamworld inducer tablets. Miskatonic, the company that produced Darkworlds, said it was a harmless natural product, but the rumor on the street was that it was a hallucinogenic, a version of LSD genetically modified by Miskatonic. In any case, the Dreamworld inducer tablet sucked you into Darkworlds, made it ultra intense. That's maybe how Spring-Heeled Jack died, if he did. You can't believe everything you hear on the web. I remember sitting in my room on the bed watching the screen. Of course, I didn't have all the Miskatonic gear, so I wasn't getting the full virtual experience. But I could see Spring-Heeled Jack as his Darkworlds load-up screen began. I wish I'd never watched it now. And you probably shouldn't watch it either. You shouldn't listen to what I'm going to tell you. But you will. Of course you will. Chapter 2. Arkham, Massachusetts. I turn on the screen and watch. I think maybe he'll fumble the beginning, mess around saying a lot, but he doesn't. Maybe it's edited. But maybe he's always this smooth. The screen is black, and then objects fade into existence. We're in a city street, and it's night. Everything's so detailed, the bricks, the downpipes, the gutters, everything. There's even a black cat. I guess it had to be black. Then the back of a guy's head wearing a Homburg hat. There's a flare of a match, and he cups his hand to light a cigarette. In the yellow glow is the face of a man who's seen some things he'd rather forget. Then, cigarette lit, he turns and faces his audience. "Hello," he says. "I'm Spring-Heeled Jack. Let's take a walk." And I follow him into the game. The sky's dark and overcast, and a fine rain blows at 45-degree angle from somewhere out of sight. I can see everything he sees on his screen. The lettering at the screen top says French Hill, Arkham, Massachusetts. He turns his collar up in true gumshoe style. Then, as if reading my mind, he says, "In the game, my name is Jack Kowalski. I thought it had the ring of a private eye. Want to see my skills?" Of course, I can't answer him, but he's decided to show me anyway. Here's my stats, first of all. Health 100, sanity 100, mana 100, reputation 100, and then my skills. First aid 30, pistols 45, climb 20, lockpicking 30, street fighting 20, stealth 40, research 20, criminology 15. I'm only level 1, of course. He laughs. Like, of course, he's not going to stay level 1 for long. He never does. He just races up the levels in every game. Truth is, he's a bit smug. And his laugh is annoying. But I have to admit it's realistic. I feel like the guy's really talking to me, rather than speaking from a pre-recorded tape of a game session filmed maybe 3 months ago. Spring-Heel Jack was one of those game stream dudes who makes his money from getting views on his streams of playing different games. This was his first one playing Darkworlds, hence him being level 1. He talks again. When you start Darkworlds, what is cool is that they give you a mentor and he talks you through your life story. I said I was the only child of Polish immigrants to New York. My dad became a meat packer and died when I was 10. My mom worked in an all-night cafe, so I brought myself up. That gave me a bunch of skills just from my life story. Then I selected the profession of private eye, which gave me some more. Finally, my 100 skill points for level 1 I allocated, giving me what you saw. The wind gusts rain across the empty roads and damp newspapers blow down the sidewalk. The streets of 1920s Arkham are lit by yellow sodium lamps that reflect from the wet stones of the buildings and the road. I don't see any cars at first. Then he turns his head, and I see what Jack sees as he looks down towards the far end of town, down the long, straight streets. Place names pop up. What I'm seeing is the steep wooded shape of Hangman's Hill, and there are cars down there. But up here, where we are tonight on French Hill, it's lonely. Then something darts across the sky. Jack jerks his head up. Fuck, did you see that? I answer that I did, but he doesn't hear. Got to admit, the place has atmosphere, he says. He shakes his head. Some flying monster shit. And I don't have a gun. He looks around. Maybe there's something I can improvise into a weapon lying around, because I've got a feeling I'm going to run into trouble soon. I follow him as he looks down the gutters on the far side of the street. The brownstones loom up in front of us 4 stories high. The windows are in darkness like nobody lives there. And then I see, or rather Jack sees, a light up in the top window of the house just to the right. He doesn't remark on it, but to me, it looks like it's an oil lamp placed in the window for a specific purpose, probably to lure players. Ah! Jack darts forward and picks up a wet stick from the edge of the sidewalk. It glitters in the yellow street light as he picks it up and shakes water from it. Even the droplets look real. Okay, he says. This has got some weight. I can use this. He stands for a while admiring his new club. Nothing happens. I'm beginning to get bored, thinking he must have gone AFK when he snaps back. Sorry about that. Comfort break. Let's take a look around. He walks down the street, scanning this way and that. I'm looking for a quest, in case you wondered. I still think it's worth going back to the house that had the light in the top floor, but we're past that now. We just walk over the street and back again. A fast black shape shoots across the ground from the cellar of the house that looks abandoned on the far side. I shudder and jerk back in my seat in my bedroom when I realise it's a black rat. Jack jerks back too. Damn fucking rats, I hate them, he laughs. Why am I even playing this game? Since when was I into horror? Superheroes are my comfort zone. But I know why he's doing this stream, because Darkworlds is getting very popular. Popular means more views of his stream, and that means more income. I see the oil lamp light way up in the house on the far side. I'm willing him to check it out. Go on, dumbass, there's your quest. Stop wandering around in the rain. Go see. He lingers a while longer. I'm beginning to think he's pretty stupid. I've followed his eyes up to the light a few times now, so I know he's seen it. What's holding him back? He looks at the light again and laughs again, but this time it's a little nervous. He's getting the full virtual reality experience, not me, and I realise the reason he hasn't walked over is that he's scared. This game is freaking him out. What a pussy. It's just a game. I sigh and shake my head. I should quit watching and go do something more useful. But I can't. Finally, he says, "That must be something. It's the only light in the street." "Well, duh. It's got a lot of atmosphere, this game." "You said that already." He laughs again. "Okay, I'm going over." I get first person of the wet street and the looming door. The door's painted black. There's a brass doorknob and a letterbox, but both are tarnished. The place doesn't look well cared for. "Probably locked," he says. "I bet not." As he considers the dark door, a name bubble comes up in elegant copperplate writing. 1102 Miskatonic Ave. "Go on, open the door," I yell at the screen, and tentatively he reaches out with his stick and prods it. Nothing happens. Just the end of the stick scrapes the door. I hear the dull squeak. "Locked," he says. I yell at the screen, "No, it's not. You haven't tried the doorknob." Then he does, reaching out as if it might be electrified. At the last minute, he has a burst of courage and grabs the doorknob, turning it and pushing the door. It swings open with an atmospheric creak. See, it wasn't locked. I knew that. This is the Quest House. Jack stands staring into the hall. Then he steps in out of the rain. The only light comes from the street lamps outside, spilling feebly into a narrow lobby floored in black and red tiles. The design of the tiles looks like screaming faces in torture, but it's probably just the light playing tricks. To the right is a door that leads to a front room. It stands ajar, and I could see yellow street light lying in straight lines on a patterned carpet. "I can almost smell the decay," Jack says. No, I actually can smell the decay. How the hell did they do that? Good job, Miskatonic. Then he shakes his head. "I'm not going in there." I see the stick point out at the first room on the left. There's a low table, and on the table an oil lamp and a box of matches. They're laid out there, as if someone was expecting us. He sees it too. "Very convenient," he says, "but I'm not complaining." He reaches out, takes out the matches, which seem bone dry, and lights the kerosene lantern that flares up yellow behind its smoke-stained glass mantle before Jack trims the wick and brings the flame down to size. He keeps glancing nervously to his right to the slightly open door that leads into the room. If I was him, I'd go check it out. There could be loot in there. But he doesn't. He says, "The light was upstairs." I go up there. Uncharacteristically bold of him. He must be trying to impress his audience. He advances and takes a step on the stairs. They creak with each step, and he gets halfway up the first flight, hesitates, then begins again until he's on the first landing. More stairs go up. There's a door in front of us that should look out onto the street, but it's closed. To the left, another door, also closed. A grandfather clock standing on the landing that stopped at 9:30, who knows how long ago, and a dead aspidistra plant in a big brown pot. "I'm going to check out this room." He goes forward, grabs the handle, pushes it down and shoves the door open. No light comes from the street. I see why. There are windows that would overlook the street, but they're hung with heavy drapes. Jack steps cautiously into the room. Then there's a shrill noise and he jumps back. For a second, I can't see what the hell's going on. Then I see him wielding his stick, smacking all around him. Little black bodies with yellow teeth and bright red eyes jump up. Rat bites you for 10. Health now 90 out of 100. Rat bites you for 7. Health now 83 out of 100. Rat bites you for 8. Health now 75 out of 100. Oh, those system messages are annoying. I turn them off. Jack lashes round. "You hit rat for 12. You hit rat for 8. You kill rat, 10 XP. Then more rat bites until our hero's down to 55 out of 100 health. He needs to heal up. He kills 3 more rats, netting himself 40 XP in total, and comes out of it all at 48 health. Jack laughs. "Well, that was shit. Didn't see them coming, but I nailed the critters with my trusty stick." He takes a minute to pull himself together, then he enters the bedroom. The sheet and blanket are thrown back, as if whoever was in them just left. But then, on a closer look, the sheets are yellow and mildewed. Jack lifts his lantern high. There's a bookshelf and a nightstand by the bed with another oil lamp. It's still got oil in it. He obviously doesn't think it's worth lighting because he goes over to the nightstand. He tries the drawer. It rattles but doesn't open. He tugs at it. Then he remembers his skills. I see him scrolling through his skills until lockpicking lights up. There must be a more elegant way to do this. Maybe there's a hotbar system, but he selects lockpicking. Lockpicking. 30 skill points invested. The 20-sided die icon whirls and I see 38 plus 18 equals 56. Success. There's a nice little animation of his hands using thin lockpicks and a click, and the drawer opens. In the drawer are $3 bills. He pockets them. Cash held, $3. There's also a little crystal bottle like a perfume bottle. It contains a pink liquid. He picks it up, takes off the stopper and sniffs it, but I'm not sure how that'll help him. Roses, he says. Hey, they figured a way to include smells in Darkworlds. That is impressive. Must be through their neural net stimulator. I guess they can stimulate the olfactory centers in the brain, like the Penfield experiments in the 1930s. Did I mention I'm interested in neuroscience? Even so, another good job, Miskatonic. It seems this game really is groundbreaking. He says. Still don't know what this is, though. Some kind of potion. Drink it already. He hesitates, then takes a sip. Health potion restores health by 20. Health 75 out of 100. So, health potions are pink and smell of roses. Worth knowing. If I ever play this game, that is. So he turns, scans the rest of the room. A silver candlestick gleams on a chest of drawers. He takes that. I guess it can be sold for cash. Then Jack goes over to the bookshelf and runs his fingers over the spines of the books. One in particular glows as he touches it. His finger keeps going and he comes back to touch the spine again just to see if the effect will repeat. It does. Well, what do we have here? He pulls the book out. It's a plain red cover with the name The Esoteric Tarot by Macario Timon. As he touches it, a bubble appears in the same game copperplate font. Read this book. The Esoteric Tarot awards 10 to the occult law skill. The Esoteric Tarot removes 5 sanity. Not yet. He doesn't read it, but he pockets it. Then he leaves the room. We're now staring up the next flight of stairs. Jack still has his oil lamp, but somehow the light doesn't seem to work as well here, as if the air's thicker, almost smoky, though I see no smoke. Up again, I guess. I nod, though he hasn't got a clue that I'm there. He takes his first steps. I notice there's an exertion meter on his HUD. As he climbs the stairs, I see it lift off the bottom and rise a little way into the green zone. It's nowhere near the amber zone, not to mention the red. Hang on, what's that? And he stops, raising the lamp. The light is even poorer, just a few steps up. I strain my eyes. There's a dark shape, about man-sized. It's not moving. Hello? Jack shouts up. The thing doesn't answer. Are you a player? Jack says. The silence is deafening. Jack clears his throat. To himself he says, nothing, just a prop. And he starts off again. It's definitely man-shaped, but stands stock still, its hands folded across its chest like a vampire without a coffin. Hello? Jack calls again, though now he's only 10 steps away from it. He raises his stick. Hello? With a roar, Jack runs up the last steps and takes a side swing at the thing, thwacking it with his stick. The thing falls, revealed now for what it was, and it tumbles onto Jack. Cadaver hits you for 20. Health, 55 out of 100. Oh God, it's a dead body! The corpse falls down the stairs to thud on the landing below us and lie motionless. What the hell's that doing there? Cautiously, Jack makes his way down the steps, but the thing doesn't move, just lies face down. It's not undead, just dead. Jack kicks it with his foot, and it doesn't move. Then he prods it with his toe, forcing it over. The grey corpse face is mummified. Locks of stringy hair are plastered over a high forehead and empty eye sockets. Then a centipede worms its way out of the dead man's eye. Oh, fuck. You observe something mildly horrific. Sanity -5. I laugh out loud. Good old Miskatonic, there's a sanity mechanism. I wonder what happens when you go crazy. Jack sips his health potion to take him back up to 75, then another sip to get him to 95 health. He even wipes his mouth with the back of his hand and aims a kick at the corpse, boots it, seems satisfied with that, and turns to mount the stairs again. The top room is where the light is. The door's closed. Of course it would be. But there's a small cupboard built into the right wall, just a place for treasure. Jack clicks the cupboard open. It's not locked and it's not trapped, though he doesn't seem to have thought about the possibility of traps. The yellow flickering light of his oil lamp illuminates a shallow recess. Something metal gleams in there and he reaches to take it. Pocket knife. Damage 1 to 6. Better than my stick anyway, he says, and slips it into his inventory. He's about to close the cupboard door when something else catches his eye. He reaches for it with his fingers and slips it out. It's a business card. It doesn't look anything like as old or mouldy as this house. It looks new, in fact. Jack reads the card. Hieronymus Levi, occultist. 231 Hill Street, Arkham, Massachusetts. Must be for something, Jack says. Then he turns to the door. As if working up his courage, he waits. I see he has the pocket knife in his right hand now. Okay, he says, and opens the door. We can't see into the room, but it's lit, as we'd expect. A deep, masculine voice says, "Come in. I've been expecting you." Chapter 2. Karl Marx. Spring Hill Jack, alias Jack Kowalski, Private Eye, enters the lamplit room. The shadows hang heavy, heavier and darker than the red and gold brocaded drapes that close out the night. The carpet is luxurious and the furniture completely out of place in this shabby house. Antique-looking chairs upholstered in tapestry designs. A desk of rosewood lurks against the wall. Empty chairs conspire in corners, but there, set up like a framed photograph, a man sits in an armchair, hands folded over his knees. He doesn't look 1920s, he looks more Victorian, with big curly hair going grey and a big beard. His eyes are bright and his lips pursed as if he's waiting to speak. Jack goes forward, knife raised, but the man makes no move to attack him, just sits there with the ghost of a smile on his face. The man looks like Karl Marx, the communist philosopher from 1800 and something. Then he speaks. "Hello, I've been waiting for you. I am Karl Marx. You have found Karl Marx, 300 XP. So he is Karl Marx. What the hell is Karl Marx doing in a Lovecraftian horror game? In Arkham, Massachusetts. Old HP would have hated him. HP was alt-right before it ever became alt. I don't think Jack knows who Karl Marx is. I mean, he never claimed to be educated or anything, just popular. Sometimes they're the same thing, but that's mostly coincidence. I wait for Jack to speak. So does Karl. Eventually Jack says, "Hi, are you a player?" Karl Marx watches him with those hooded eyes. "You mean, am I a womanizer?" Jack shakes his head. "Not that sort of player." He searches for words. Like, are you human? Karl jerks his chin. "How impertinent." But there's something glittering and inhuman in his eyes. He's not human. He's an NPC, a computer-generated personality. He shrugs and waves his hand and looks instantly Jewish. There's something about that gesture that reminds me of a very Jewish friend of mine. How come Miskatonic could get the gesture so right? How did they know Karl Marx's body language? Jack is stuck for his next conversation piece, so luckily the artificial intelligence that is Karl Marx says, "I wonder if you could help me." So, this is the quest. Jack nods. "Sure. I have a little problem I'd like you to help me take care of." "Okay, I'm listening." Karl tilts his head and begins his story. "You see, there is a woman. She cheated me. We had a little deal." Jack interrupts. "What kind of deal?" Karl gives an unamused smile. "That is nothing for you to worry about. The important thing is that she broke her side of the deal. He looks up straight into Jack's eyes, which are temporarily mine too. And she has to pay. I've played games like this before, and I think this is the point where you can choose to be of good or evil alignment. Looks like Carl is trying to tempt Jack onto the way of darkness, but Jack doesn't say anything. He just nods. Go on. For the first time, I'm in agreement with Jack. We should hear what the hell this quest is about before dismissing it. Like I said, she has to pay. Jack shrugs. Couldn't she just give you what she owes you? Carl says, no, she's gone too far. She must be shown that she can't mess with me. Jack looks bored. Fine. Who is she? She is called Elaine Laquelle. She runs a dress shop in town on Crane Street near St. Mary's Hospital, just over from the university. I wonder what Karl Marx wants with a dress shop owner, but hey, it's a strange world. Jack says, how will I recognize her? Shoulder-length black hair, a mouth painted crimson, an hourglass figure with a nipped waist but full hips and an ample bosom. Eyes like amethyst. Brows dark as bat wings. I'm getting the picture. Not the sort of woman you wouldn't recognize. Okay, so when I find her, then what? What do you want her to pay? Money? Let's talk about your pay first. I'm happy to give you $10 for this job. Quite a lot of money in 1927. And this pistol. Karl Marx reaches into his jacket and pulls out a handgun. A bubble flashes up due to Jack's firearms skill that identifies it as a Smith & Wesson 38 Special. Jack nods with interest. He wants a gun. I can tell that. He's that kind of guy. Sounds reasonable. So if not money, you want me to slap her around? That's nasty. I'm not with Jack in this. I was brought up never to hit girls, not even when they hit me first. Karl Marx throws back his head and guffaws. When he's controlled his mirth, he looks at Jack, and I swear there's tears of joy in the old communist's eyes. He points the gun at Jack, who flinches, making Karl laugh again. You are my kind of guy, you really are. And this time I see something deeper in Karl's eyes. Something not nice. So what? Jack's becoming impatient. Karl's smile goes icy. So? Then Karl nods. You have a knife. Jack nods. Good. Why good? Because, my boy, I want you to cut out her heart. I don't need it brought to me on a silver platter. A brown paper bag will do. A system message flashes up. Do you accept the quest of the bloody heart? Sitting in my room, I yell, don't accept, it's too sick. But I know he will. There's no hesitation before Jack Kowalski hits the accept button. Another message. You have agreed to do something despicable. Reputation, -5. Reputation must work like good or evil alignment in other games. Karl nods with a satisfied smile. That's my boy. As soon as you like. I should stop watching. This game's sadistic. I like to play games where killing people is a long way from real zombies, orcs, bad guys, but not dress shop owners. I go for a drink of water. When I come back, Jack's on the street. Dawn is rising with grey fingers in the east, and the rain has stopped. Jack turns up the collar of his coat. For the first time in a long time, he speaks to us, his audience. Cut out someone's heart? This game's more hardcore than I imagined. As we walk down the street, I wonder about the nature of evil. Is this how we'd all be if we didn't have laws to stop us doing evil? I shudder. Not me. I've got morals. I know what's right and wrong. As we walk down College Street, I see students streaming to their classes at the university. There are cafes where they get bagels and cigarettes. Lots of them smoke, but it's the 1920s, so they thought it was healthy then. There are more cars and an old-fashioned bus making its way up the hill. We turn right on the corner of West Street, and the ominous and overwrought architecture of the Miskatonic University looms up above us. And there's Crane Street, the dress shop. Arkham Fashions is easy to spot. Jack walks over. He spends a minute looking at the mannequins in the flapper fashions and then pushes open the door, the bell ringing at the top as he enters. A petite blonde turns and studies Jack. She's been folding blouses ready to put out. "Can I help you, sir?" she asks. She's smiling. She's pretty. "Are you Miss Laquelle?" The blonde shakes her head. "Mrs. Laquelle is in the back." I don't know how Jack thought this was Elaine Laquelle. She was described as having black hair. The blonde assistant says, "I'll go fetch her." A minute later, Mrs. Elaine Laquelle emerges, a frown on her face. And boy, if the first girl was pretty, this one is a stunner. She looks like she should be in a burlesque show. Her lips are blood red, and like the man said, her eyes are like alluring crystal. Her cheeks are pale, and she looks like she's been crying. "Do I know you?" she asks Jack. Jack shakes his head. If he's fazed by the idea of cutting out her heart, it doesn't show. "I'm Jack Kowalski, private eye." Elaine puts her hand to her mouth. "How strange." "Strange, why?" She gives a hollow, unconvincing laugh. "Because my husband's gone missing. I need a private detective." Well, well. So the game design is a tad uninspired, but I'm enjoying the atmosphere and the detail of this shop. The two women, the dresses, even the authentic-looking glass counters. Elaine says, "Would you like to come into the back?" Jack doesn't hesitate. I bet he'd like to go into the back with Elaine. Not that I think that kind of thing is possible in Darkworlds, but maybe it is. We shall see. Elaine glances at the blonde. "Mind the store, will you, Dora? I shouldn't be too long." I follow Jack, who follows Elaine. We go back through a store area into a cramped office with an ink-stained desk, the leather top of which is scarred, and coming up at the sides, there are lots of invoices and paperwork. Elaine gestures for Jack to sit. She sits herself, sliding one leg over the other. She's wearing stockings. I wonder if he'll try to look up her dress. He seems that kind of guy. Then she picks up a silver cigarette case, flips it open, and offers Jack one. He declines while she reaches for a lighter, flicks it open, and rolls an elegant thumb on the wheel, sparking the flint and lighting a column of gas. She takes a long drag, filling her lungs. I just can't get over how realistic these NPCs are. I want to ask her how she thinks, if she thinks. What if these NPCs have achieved that status? What if the code is so complicated that these NPCs have come awake? What if each of them has a will and a desire? It's not just painted on to make it look like they want things. What if they really do? And so I stare at Elaine with a new fascination. Jack doesn't seem to be considering these profound things. He's studying her chest every time she looks away and won't see him doing it. "It's my husband, you see," Elaine explains, her hand holding the cigarette languidly trailing away, the column of grey smoke rising like a warning. "Go on." I can't see Jack's shit-eating grin, but I know it's there. "He's gone missing." Her face twists in a sour look like she's tasted bitter aloes. "He got involved with a nasty man in this town. Trouble is, William, my husband, had a gambling problem. It's illegal, of course. And this man lent him a lot of money." "Which man?" She shakes her head. "That doesn't matter. I tried to help William, tried to earn some more money." "Like in a dress shop?" She blushes, lowers her eyes, and takes a puff of a cigarette. "Not exactly. In other ways." "How so?" She can't meet his eyes. "I don't like to say. I don't know what you'll think of me." Jack's not put off. "Try me." This time she's staring at the ceiling. "There's a rich man in town. He owns lots of property. I knew he'd always liked me, so I can see where this is going. So can Jack. He seems to be enjoying it, though. He means to drag it out if I get it to say the words. So I said we could go out. Go out? Like for a date?" "That?" Crystal tears fill her clear blue eyes. "And more?" This is really tugging at my heartstrings. How can such a beautiful woman be made to degrade herself for a good-for-nothing gambling loser husband? Then I remember it's just a game. But even so, I'm right there with her. And Jack wants to cut her heart out. More? For fuck's sake, Jack, don't be more of a dick than you obviously are. You know what I mean, Mr. Kowalski? I'm not going to spell it out. Jack shrugs. Pity. Anyway, so we went wrong, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Elaine wipes her dark lashes, smudging her mascara. Maybelline, I bet. A bitter laugh. Oh, it went wrong. I couldn't go through with it. And so your husband didn't get his money. Worse, this rich man kidnapped him, and he's holding him. Jack smirks. And you want me to rescue him. Suddenly, this beautiful woman's face is filled with hope. Would you? I'd pay. She hasn't got any money, so how's she going to pay? She stands up, goes to the store area, and comes back holding a nice long grey raincoat. As Jack looks at it, an information bubble pops up. Overcoat of the day. 50% defense against negative energy. That looks nice. And of course, she said, you'd have the gratitude of a heartbroken woman. Okay, I'll do it. Elaine Laquelle offers you the quest of the missing husband. Jack hits accept and we get another message. You have embarked upon a decent quest. Reputation +5. Jack crosses his legs. So we only need to know a few things. She's listening intently. He says, who is this rich man? We all know who the rich man's going to be. The irony of Karl Marx being a massive property owner is not lost on me, though it may be on Jack. Karl Marx, she says. She's not crying anymore. The residual glitter in her eyes makes her even more attractive. And where has he got your husband? That's the tricky part, she says. She stubs out a cigarette in a glass ashtray. Marx owns lots of places in and around town. So you don't know where he's got your husband? She shakes her head. No, I do. He's got him at the abandoned fun fair. Of course he has. Chapter 4. A warning. I go for a drink and let the stream run, and the next thing, I'm out on the street following Jack Kowalski through the rain-soaked streets. The sky is opened above Arkham and the rain is pissing down. Just then lightning cracks across the sky and makes me jump. Jack stays calm. He's talking to me, his audience. See, if I work this right, I can complete both quests and get the XP and the rewards from Karl Marx and Elaine Laquelle. I'm thinking the order of this is pretty important. If you cut out Elaine's heart for old Karl before you complete her quest, it won't work. Let's see where this fun fair is. Jack summons up a map and the screen is suddenly filled with a drawing of Arkham setting out the streets. French Hill, Hangman's Hill, the Church of the Starry Wisdom, and Miskatonic University, all the good places. Sure enough, up on the northeast edge of the town is the Big Kid Fun Fair, disused. But also there's a marker for your office, not far from here, on Saltonstall Street. Jack lifts his hat and scratches his head, the rain running off his lined forehead. I didn't know I had an office. Better go check it out. NPCs hurry by, their heads down, or umbrellas up, avoiding Jack's eyes, as if there's a dark secret in the town they don't want to share with strangers, which of course there is. I follow Jack round the corner. The office is behind a big door up some stone steps from the street. We go up and push the door open. It's a relief to be out of the rain, and I wasn't even in it. Jack's coat and hat are realistically soaked. A big concierge in uniform with a shiny peaked hat sits behind the desk. Good morning, Mr. Kowalski. How are you today? The NPC asks. Do I know you? Jack says in his usual abrupt fashion. He clearly didn't put any points into social skills. Sure you do, Mr. Kowalski. You see me every day for 2 years now. The man jerks his meaty thumb towards the stairs. Every time you come to your office. And sometimes you sleep there too, when you've drunk too much whiskey. Jack shrugs. Okay, pipe down. I'm going up to my office. Sure thing, Mr. Kowalski. You have a nice day now. Jack orientates himself to the stairs and then goes up. The staircase is gloomy, the varnish is chipped. There are stair rods on one or two of the treads, but no carpet. From the discoloration in the varnish, there clearly was one there once. Old, ragged spiderwebs lace across the top of the stairwell. The place needs a clean. We get to the first landing. A corridor runs off to the left, leading to offices at the front of the building. The stairs go up further, but Jack decides to check out this floor. Makes sense. The doors have frosted glass and the names of the occupants in decayed gold letters. The first one is Marcus Roth, abortionist. Well, there's nothing like being up front and not beating about the bush. The next is Carl Grimes, loan shark. The third one is Betty Grimes, exotic dancer. I didn't know exotic dancers had offices, but clearly they do. And the final one says Jack Kowalski, private eye. Kowalski reaches into the pocket of his wet coat. Looks like I have a key, too. He inserts the key into the hole, turns it with a satisfying clunk, and the door opens. I can't see over his shoulder, but he jumps back. Who the fuck are you? Like I said, I can't see who he means, but there's a groan. Jack takes out his knife. I'm warning you, buddy. Tell me who you are. I'm going to jab you. He moves and the view clears. A dishevelled-looking man is lying in the room's corner, back against the wall, his head lolling on the window ledge that looks out onto Arkham rain through a dirty Venetian blind. The man looks up but doesn't get up. He's dressed in a trench coat with a Homburg hat lying on the floor by his left hand. He lifts his right hand up as if begging for a minute. What the fuck are you doing in my office? Jack brandishes his knife, describing circles with its point, as if he's considering cutting the man's eyes out. Finally, the guy grunts, "It's my office." Then he coughs, and blood runs from his mouth over his fat bottom lip. His eyes are lined with red veins, looking like crazy paving. "This was my office anyway," he says, "before I was replaced." "Replaced? What do you mean, replaced?" Then the penny drops. "Hey, are you a player?" In fact, the guy on the floor has a blue name tag over his head. It says Heinrich Bohl. The guy nods, coughs again. More blood drips. "Listen, do you have any soma?" "Soma?" Jack says. "Well, what's soma?" The man gives a dry, humorless laugh. "Stops you seeing things." "What the hell are you talking about?" "You'll find out. I guess you're my replacement." With great weariness, the man gestures around the room. "This place. This was my office. It's got my name on the door." The man shrugs weakly. "They can do that fast. I'm Heinrich Bohl, private detective." Jack finally lowers his knife, considering Heinrich Bohl little threat. "What's the matter with you?" Bohl gestures to his head. "Insanity. I saw too many things. Soma straightened me up for a while, but I'm past that now." Jack sits back on the desk, takes off his hat and rubs his wet hair. "How long you been playing?" "Since the start. I'm level 15. Did quite well, if I say so myself. Some don't make it that far." "I still don't get what you mean. How come you're lying on the floor of my office looking like you're coming off crack cocaine?" "'Cause I feel like that. I don't have long left." "Can't we resurrect you? You can in most games." "Permadeath." "Darkworlds is a permadeath game." "Bummer. Still, you did good to get to level 15 in a permadeath game." Bull laughs again, blood and drool hanging down in a string from his bottom lip. He tries to lift his head, but it lolls down again. "No, it's really permadeath." Jack shrugs, still not getting him. "I have an inkling. But it's an inkling I don't want." "How can that be? Is he saying the game can kill you?" Bull's trying to communicate something. He says, I knew my replacement would be here soon, so I came back to the office to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "This game." "Oh, yeah?" Jack laughs his vulgar laugh. "Like, warn me it's shit?" Bull shakes his head. "First, you've got to understand what the game is. It's full of personalities." Jack looks empty-eyed, faintly bored. He's stupider than I guessed. Bull says, really struggling now, "All the NPCs, they've got personalities. The major ones are sentient." Jack's slow on the uptake. He grunts. "Like, they think. They think. They want things. They want things from players, such as your mind." Okay, Jack's probably figuring that this isn't a big problem because he doesn't have much of a mind anyway. Burl goes on. But beyond the NPCs, there are huge areas of code that have become alive. Huge swathes of almost godlike intelligence. They breed and replicate in the dark places. They want bigger things. They want out. Jack's sitting on the desk, swinging his legs. So what's this to do with me? I would say stop playing. But maybe it's too late already. They've accelerated the way they grow the protein. Say what? In your brain. The neural nets that Miskatonic gives you, they stimulate alien protein growth in your brain. As if that's true. Anyway, what for? Bull shrugs. He can hardly speak. If he knows. He's not able to say. Just stop playing. Don't become one of the warm ones. Warm ones. Alive but kept alive for their research into biological intelligence, only as a resource. Better to die. Then the light bulb dies and the room falls into a grey shadow. There's a buzzing, like a low hum of electricity seeping into the room. Jack jumps off the desk, a knife back in his hand. I want him to turn round so I can see. If he doesn't look, I can't see what's coming. But something is. He turns, and then the wallpaper on the far wall presses itself out. There's some kind of insect head emerging. Then its mouthpiece bursts through into the room, and its legs squirming and feeling their way as it drags itself into the room. It's about the size of a large dog. You have seen something dreadful. Sanity -10. Sanity 85 out of 100. Jack jerks back. The insect thing is scuttling across the floor towards the stricken Heinrich Boll. I think for a second that Jack is going to defend the damaged man and attack the bug with his knife. But he just screams like a girl and darts out of the room, slamming the frosted glass door behind him and then holding it shut with his shoulder. From inside the room, there's a scream. Then another scream. Then a slurping sound. Chapter 5. The Funfair. Fleeing from the death of his predecessor revealed the depth of cowardice and bad character in spring-heeled Jack. I was only now coming to recognize. Not that he could have defeated the bug before it ate poor old Heinrich Boll. At least I think it ate him. Maybe it did something worse. Jack only had a knife, but he could have stabbed it. It's only a game. What's the worst that could have happened to him? The game was permadeath sure, but he could just re-roll another tune and begin again. But he didn't. Jack ran. And when he bolts past the NPC concierge staring blankly into space and bursts through the street door, all we hear is the concierge yelling, "Have a nice day, Mr. Kowalski," at Jack's back. I swear Jack's out of breath when we get to the street. It's still raining. He seems rattled. Well, damn that to hell. What was that thing? My sanity took a hit from seeing it. I'm only 85% now. He laughs. What do I need sanity for anyway? But he's not dismissing it. He just doesn't know what the loss of sanity will lead to. Neither do I. But I suspect it doesn't lead anywhere good. Something about becoming a warm one. Jack checks his map and orientates himself to the funfair, then closes the map and we start walking. Time to collect some loot and XP, he mutters. The weather's so bad, with dark clouds layering the air above us, that it's hard to tell whether it's night or day. Most of the good folk of Arkham are keeping home, avoiding the weather and anything else that haunts their streets, even in daytime. We trudge along Garrison Street, past a finger post that says, "To Innsmouth," and eventually we see the dirty green water of the Miskatonic River, and beyond that the rain-shrouded hills of Arkham County. A few people in raincoats pass us, but nobody's for talking. Jack checks his map again and takes a left along River Street, past lots of warehouses that collect cargo from riverboats. The boats are there, but battened down against the weather. On some of them, oil-skinned crew can be seen checking ropes and removing boxes. I have a strange intimation that underneath their sou'westers we might find fish scales rather than skin, and big, protruding fish's eyes instead of dainty human ones. Jack's going fast now, but every now and again he glances nervously at the turbulent, shifting water of the Miskatonic, as if scared something might slither out and snare him. Then I see the first sign for the funfair. a rusty steel finger whose painted letters are corroded and faint, but I can still read. Big Kid Funfair. When we finally see it, the funfair entrance looks like the door to a death camp. Even Jack stops to take it in. There's a spearhead-topped iron railing round, also decayed and rusted. Some spears are broken off, but their tips look sharp enough to keep anyone from climbing in or out. But they don't need to climb because the iron gates stand open, one fully back, the other halfway in the road, as if it can't make up its mind whether the funfair's shut or not. It looks shut. Leaves litter the roadway, sodden in heaps, and grass has sprouted up in the middle of the gate area. An old newspaper, the Arkham Gazette, lies caught against the half-open gate. It doesn't look like yesterday's edition. No one has been in the funfair for a while. And as we approach the gate, I see Jack has his hand on his knife hilt. The halted Ferris wheel stands against the sky, its empty cars hanging there getting soaked. I hope there's no one stuck in them. The skeletons of other rides lie at various depths inside the park. I see a broken Big Dipper and a shooting gallery now mournful and abandoned. Jack shuffles around at the entrance to the park, not stepping inside the gates. "Where's Elaine Laquelle?" he mutters, staring back down River Street. A figure, heavily wrapped up, walks towards us, but at this distance, it's hard to say whether it's a man or a woman. Then he scans around him. Something moves inside the park. Something flits from tree to tree in there, just to the right of the shooting gallery, but I don't think Jack saw it. He doesn't mutter or curse like he would if he had. There's something in there waiting for us. Of course there is. And then he almost jumps out of his skin as a silken voice says right in his ear, "Mr. Kowalski, I'm glad you made it. I thought you might chicken out." It's Elaine Laquelle standing there in a raincoat which manages to flatter her figure. She doesn't look wet like Jack does. "Where the hell did you come from?" he says. She gives a sweet titter, raising her hand to her mouth to cover her mirth, then points behind her. "I was in a ticket booth waiting. You don't expect a girl to stand in the rain, do you?" Then she tilts her head up towards the dark clouds. "But I do think it's fairing up." She turns with a smile, her blue eyes like precious stones, her red mouth like it was painted in blood. "Are you ready, Mr. Kowalski?" He might be ready, but I remember the shadow in there waiting for us. Elaine seems keen, maybe too keen, to get Jack into the funfair. I'm suddenly suspicious of her. I thought she was just a nice, sexy lady NPC, but now there seems an edge to her, as if something unsuspected lurks below the surface of her pretty smile. As Jack steps within the boundaries of the funfair, the metal gates scrape across the gravel road to close behind him. He turns round. "Neat effect. Adds atmosphere." Elaine's still smiling. "She's a vampire. That's obvious to me now. I should have guessed. The blood-red lips, the pale skin, the black hair. It's a Morticia Addams look, but more sophisticated, like Sean Young in the first Blade Runner. How come Jack doesn't figure this out? Instead, he keeps walking, trailing behind her like a puppy, hesitant but definitely following her lead, as if she had him on an invisible leash. Above, the sky glowers. Then a flash of lightning, and something slithers out of the damp undergrowth and crosses the path ahead of us. Jack yells, "What was that?" You've seen something mildly disturbing. Sanity -5. Sanity 80 out of 100. Nothing silly. Just one of the little friends that live here in the park. I hear the waver in his voice. It looked like some kind of black centipede or a leech. She's smiling, a haunting kind of smile. It was neither a centipede nor a leech. It was something else entirely. Then what was it? She gently wags her finger. That's for me to know and you to find out. They walk on past a rotten candy floss stall, its paint mildewed and stained by the weather. Do you know where your husband is? Jack asks. Elaine nods. Then why do you need me? She grins. Because it's your quest. I can hardly give myself XP, can I, you kook? So you know you're an NPC? Of course. So you're aware that this is a computer simulation? She laughs. Of course. In the same way that you're aware that you're in the middle of your life. It's called metacognition, a mind that can look at itself. I'm not sure our slithery friend who crossed the road just now has metacognition, but we have. Who's we? Some sophisticated NPCs, and of course, the great old ones. Jack lets that one pass. She's just mentioned the great old ones, and he's not even asked one question about them. I would, but I can't. This is a recording. Whatever happened to Spring Hill Jack has already happened, and there's nothing I can do to change it. There's about 20 paces of silence, and Jack says, "This sanity thing, how does it work? I met a guy who warned me about it." She's suddenly interested. Someone warned you? Who? A player. Ah, a player. Where is this player now? Dead, I think. You didn't check? Jack shakes his head. I sense a slight shame in his body language, but then again, I might just be imagining that. It doesn't matter anyway, Elaine says. So about this sanity thing. Then he looks up. In the topmost branches of the dark trees to the side of the path are man-sized bat things, humanoid-looking creatures with leather wings and white eyes, and inward curving horns roosting like overgrown crows. They see Jack looking and fidget uneasily. What the hell are those? Night gaunts. First one, then another of the night gaunts launch themselves from the trees and swoop and circle above like ravens awaiting carrion. You have seen something distinctly unnatural. Sanity -10. Sanity 70 out of 100. A night gaunt dives as if tiring of waiting for Jack to die and wanting to speed up the process, but as it does so, Rachel points her left hand at it, mutters eldritch syllables, and a beam of sickening red and black light blasts from her fingertips and sears up to hit the night gaunt. As the foul ray strikes it, the night gaunt screams in blood-curdling tones and withers as if it was a piece of plastic held too close to the heat. It falls and lands heavily in the bushes beside the path. What did you do? Was that magic? Jack stares at where the creature fell, its companions now flapping and fluttering away through the heavy air. It was magic. You can do magic? Elaine nods. You protected me. I did, Jack. I don't want you getting eaten by a night gaunt. She's smiling like his babysitter. Thanks. He sounds really grateful. Elaine might know we're in a dream, but Jack is taking all of this very seriously now. If he's as scared as he sounds, why doesn't he just log out? That was really nasty, he says. They eat you while you're alive, Elaine says. But come on, let's not be late. 2 minutes later, we're in the heart of the disused amusement park. All around us, the rides and attractions are rotten and falling to bits. The Ferris wheel stands huge up to the left. I see more night gaunts sit on it, just watching us. Other things slither around almost out of sight among the rank grass and wet bushes that have grown up amidst the broken machinery and shattered stalls. What's that voice singing? Elaine shakes her head. I hear no voice. Neither do I. Jack nods rapidly, his knife held tight like it might protect him from whatever he's about to face. Yes, singing, high-pitched singing. It's saying crazy words, like it's saying them to me. Then he looks around distractedly. He bats at the air and then rubs his eyes. I'm seeing things too, like cobwebs, but cobwebs that are alive. Elaine still smiling, her strange, alluring smile. I see nothing. It must be the sanity loss, Jack says, trying to explain away his panic. It must be the sanity loss, I think. But I'm watching the recorded stream and I hear nothing. I see nothing. Whatever sensory effects Jack is getting from losing his sanity aren't recorded in the game stream. It takes me a second to figure it out, then I realise this must be what Heinrich Boll was warning us about. The sanity loss affects the player in real life. It starts in the game, but like Boll explained, the game infiltrates the mind. What starts in the game enters the player's mind, so when he goes crazy in the game, he goes crazy in real life too. They're standing in front of the ghost train. Rails lead into a long tunnel. On either side of its black mouth are joke skeletons and ghosts drawn in sheets. In there? Jack asks. Elaine nods. So I go in? She smiles. Of course. Your husband's in there? He is. Jack shakes his head. I still don't get it. If you can come here yourself, why do you need me? We talked about that. What fun would it be without you, Jack? So if I rescue him, I get the loot and XP. She nods. You complete the quest and get everything. I remember that Jack is planning to double-cross her, kill her, and take her heart and give it to Karl Marx once he's got the reward for her quest. His knife's in his hand, still, as if to prove his intent, but he's very fidgety now. He keeps wiping his eyes and snapping his head around as if plagued by things unseen. Then, with a huge sigh, he turns, faces the entrance of the ghost train, and steps forward. Atta boy, Elaine says. Now, she's following him. He turns. Have you got a flashlight? No, don't worry. You'll be fine. He clears his throat. He stopped walking. Is it far in? Quite a way. Keep walking. At first he doesn't, but then he starts again, and I wonder if it's because she's a woman and he doesn't want to seem scared in front of her, even though she's a cartoon woman. I'm looking through Jack's eyes, and all I see is the great darkness ahead. I hear the scrape of his boots on the floor. She must be behind us, but she's quiet now. He goes forward a minute, 2 minutes, but we can't see anything. He stops and turns, but he can't see Elaine either. She's there, though, because when he asks, her voice answers, Not far now. Jack walks further in. Then there's a sound to the right, like someone moved in the dark. He spins round. Who's there? Silence. Then again, Who's there? But there's no answer, so he asks Elaine. It's a ghost train, silly. It's meant to scare you. I'm not scared. In the darkness, I hear her laugh. A pleasant, musical laugh. She doesn't believe him. Neither do I. He rubs his head. You're sure your husband's here? Oh, yes. But how far in? Only a little way now. So I keep walking on, just straight. Just straight. Don't get frightened now, Jack. I'm looking forward to giving you your reward. He starts off again, but really slowly now. Then he screams, Something ran over my feet! One of those slithery things! You are surprised by something nasty. Sanity -10. Sanity 60 out of 100. Keep walking, Jack. Nearly there now. Okay. His voice is shaking now. He must want this reward pretty badly. And then a faint red light becomes visible. It's coming from ahead of us, and it isn't bright. It's like a red bulb in an old-fashioned photographer's darkroom. At least it gives some illumination. But when Jack turns, he can't be comforted by what he sees. Ominous looming shapes lurk on all sides. I guess they must be old props, wooden ghosts and skeletons from the days when the ghost train brought carloads of visitors to laugh and scare themselves on nothing. There's maybe even a model vampire in the shadows. But maybe something worse. Maybe something much worse. I imagine the night gaunts sitting in the shadows, watching Jack with their empty eyes, just waiting for him in this awful dark. And Elaine following, out of sight, close enough to touch but not to see. I think if Jack turned now, he'd see her teeth. This is such an obvious setup. And then we see it. A huge pulsing hole. It gives out blood-red light as if from beyond a monstrous tainted blood flow. The squamous surface of it speaking of blasphemies beyond understanding. It has a centre, a sphincter-like hole. I imagine getting trapped in that hole and squeezed and pulled in and swallowed, digested by the evil red muck that serves it for blood. I hear small slapping and slurping noises as it pulsates. Jack moans. You have seen something quite dreadful. Sanity -20. Sanity 40 out of 100. He moans again. He's pulling at the skin on his face. His mouth opens to make speech, but so far only moans and noises emerge. That can't be your husband, he says. Elaine's voice comes from the shadow behind Jack. That is my husband, the god Kiluz, a self-created lord of the code. Jack says, I don't feel well. I see that. But you will complete the quest. Jack's slapping at his face with his free hand. He's drooling like a man about to vomit, long spindles of spit hanging from his soft, open lip. So, I have to rescue him? No. Jack's still staring at the great wet sphincter, the idiot god created by itself, evolving from lines of computer code into who knows what. Jack repeats Elaine's word. No? No. We tricked you. Jack turns. He looks confused, muddled at what's happening. He still has his knife. Now I see Elaine with his game eyes. She stands there unbuttoning her coat and lets it fall. She's wearing the tight-fitting black and red dress, and her hands unbutton that too, until she's standing in some silk underwear. She reaches behind and unclips the bra which she lets fall, revealing her red-topped, juddering breasts. Her crystal blue eyes look hungry. She's licking her lips. Her teeth are white and serrated in her voracious mouth. Then she steps out of her silk French tap pants. Her long legs swell from curvaceous ankles to plump thighs, and between the thighs, her black, shining maiden hair. I don't get this, Jack says. What do you want? What's the quest? I want your mind, Elaine says. Or what's left of it. And as I watch, something squeezes its way out of her vagina like a long black finger. It pulls itself out, and now I realize it's not a finger. It's more like a leech or a worm. Then others emerge until 7 or 8 of them fall and tumble from her interior onto the floor. I realize they are the baby ones of the slitherers we saw earlier. They'll grow, of course, when they've had something to eat. Jack screams and runs. He runs into the dark, banging into things. You damage yourself on an object, -5 health. Health, 95 out of 100. You damage yourself on object, -10 health. And he continues banging into things in the dark until he's lost half his health. He's not getting anywhere. He's certainly not getting out. And then he finds the path. There's still some light from the hole behind us, enough to see a clear way. This must be the way out. My heart lifts for him. There is some hope. When they said this was a horror game, they weren't joking. Elaine calls from behind. I see you. He runs, and then grey daylight shows the way out in front of us. Thank God. Jack runs like his lungs will burst, and soon we see the entrance. It looks like we're going to make it. Almost there, and someone steps out to block our exit. At first, I think it must be Elaine, somehow got in front of us, but it's not. It's Karl Marx, and he's carrying a net. Marx hurls the net over Jack, tangling him up. You are entangled in a leather net. Do you want to struggle? I see Jack move the cursor arrow with his mind to select yes, and he begins to struggle. But he can't get out. He writhes and kicks and pulls at the net, but to no avail. He's trapped there. Karl Marx stands impassive. Then I hear gentle footsteps. Jack can't turn his head in the net to see her, but I know it's Elaine. And then she comes into sight. She's still naked. She's beautiful, apart from the black worms dropping out from between her legs. As they hit the ground, they squirm over to Jack and enter his ears and mouth and eyes. I told you he would try to double-cross us, Marx says. Elaine laughs. I wish you weren't always right. The things burrow into Jack's game brain. And for all I know, into his real-life mind too. A message flashes up on the screen. You have been killed by Loveworm. You are dead. Chapter 6. Social proof. That was disturbing. I don't know what kind of imagination comes up with black worms that drop out from a woman's private parts and burrow into your ears to eat your brain, but it's sure disturbing. The game stream is finished. There's a million comments below it, but I can't bring myself to read them. Later, when I've had a coffee and shower, I begin to check for any sign of Spring Hill Jack. He was one of GameStream's big earners back in his day. His sarcastic wit and scathing dismantling of any and all games he played earned him a large, if cynical, following. But after the Darkworlds stream, he never posted anything again. That was his swan song. I wondered if the game so sickened him he just gave up playing VR games. But when I went further, all his social media presence stopped dead. He never posted anything more anywhere. He never commented on any posts, either flattering or critical. There are no reports of him behaving badly in New York hotels or on flights to Oslo like there used to be when he was a celebrity. Nothing. I go to bed, but I can't really sleep. I'm just thinking about Darkworlds. And then I remember something I hadn't thought about. At the end, Karl Marx and Elaine Laquelle were talking about Jack's plans to double-cross them. But how could they know that? He never mentioned it. The only way they could know that was if they could somehow read his thoughts. And how was that possible? Only if they were part of a bigger being, the game itself. And the game itself was part of a larger intelligence that was everywhere in our modern world. People had started hacking their bodies to insert chips and other processors under the skin and wire them up to their organic nervous systems, the so-called cyborg cult. But there's no way a machine can read a man's mind. I forgot about Jack for 2 days, and then when I came home from work, a package had arrived, postmarked Salem, Massachusetts. I took off the outer wrapper and it said, "Special offer. You have been selected to receive a 1-month free trial of the best-selling new VR game Darkworlds. Use this code to create your character. SHJ0001X." That was Arkham Interlude, a short story in the Darkworlds game series, written and narrated by Tony Walker.